Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, take off my earphones while you're speaking to me. Sure, no problem, officer. You want the police? You got it. All drive time and mileage must be exact. All work must be covered by a permit. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Take off my earphones while you're speaking to me. Sure, no problem, officer. Happened this morning. Even though I made a complete and full stop at a four-way stop, I get pulled over by a police vehicle, lights flashing, the works. I turn my dash cam around to face me and whomever goes in front of the driver's side window. I roll it down and ask what seems to be the problem, officer? Officer looks at me the way one would look at a sticky piece of gum stuck to the bottom of one's shoe. You didn't make a complete stop, he says. I adjust one of my hearing aids, lost part of my hearing due to being a touring session musician previously, and before I could speak, he firmly orders, "Sir, take off your earphones when I'm talking to you." I take both hearing aids off and look at him. I can read lips a little, but we're both masked, so I can't understand what he's saying. I communicate in sign language simultaneously. While speaking verbally, I'm deaf, and I didn't understand what you just said. Can you communicate to me in ASL, American Sign Language, please? He points at my hearing aids that look like Apple AirPods, motioning me to put them on. I respond, "Yes, officer, without those I can only communicate in ASL. Please instruct me in ASL, and I will be compliant in every possible way." He looks at the dashcam that's neatly pointed squarely at us. He then motions for me to go, giving me 2 thumbs up. Needless to say, I rolled up the window and drove away as fast as legally allowed. Couldn't wipe the smile off my face all day, LOL. You want the police? You got it. This happened about a month ago, and while I wasn't actually a participant, I did get front row seats, literally, to witnessing this go down. I was in New York with my family, and one of the things we love to do is see Broadway plays. Our final play we got to see was Jersey Boys. Now you got understand one thing about plays in NYC right now. You have to sign a waiver saying you will wear a mask the entire show except to take a drink or eat. You also sign something that says to get into the theater you have to show proof of vaccination and ID. That's just to receive your tickets. So going into the theater you already knew that this was the case. So my family had the pleasure of sitting behind an older couple, let's call them Karen and Ken because yep. As soon as the production started they ripped off their masks. 3 times the ushers had to come and tell them to put their masks back on. The second time was pretty memorable because Karen loudly yelled, "What?" when the usher told her to please put her mask back on and wear it properly, and then she shoved her hand in her face and said, "Go away and leave me alone." Again pretty loudly. And as soon as she left again, the mask came down. Side note, I didn't see this, but my mom also them taking pictures of the play and maybe videos. So intermission comes around. They were muttering to themselves about if they come and tell us to put our masks on one more time. At that moment security, and who I presume was the manager, came over and said, "Gather you things, we need to have a talk now," because the manager came unrequested. I don't think Karen like that. Karen, why should we? We haven't done anything wrong. Ma'am, we are not going to have this talk out here. Please gather you stuff and come with me. Karen, I have no problem having this talk out here. Why do we need to talk? Ken, if it's the masks we have had them on the entire show. That's not what I was told. To keep things short, it went back and forth like this for a while. Karen and Ken insisting they wore their masks, security, and the manager insisting on taking this outside, and then Karen said the magic words. "If you want us to leave you will have to get the police. Otherwise we are staying here." Ken, yeah. That's right, get the police. The manager was gone for maybe 2 seconds. He came back and with 2 of New York's finest. and responded, "Ma'am, you got your wish. The police are here. Now grab your stuff, we need to go." At that moment, they finally begrudgingly grabbed their stuff and started to leave. Now what I will next is a phrase straight out r/slash that happened, but I kid you not, everyone started applauding them out. Karen then yelled, "Ask anyone, we had them on the whole time," to which the man behind us yelled back, "No you didn't." My parents did have a chuckle at that one. It was really nice to watch the entire second act of a truly fantastic show peacefully. And I got a great story to post. All drive time and mileage must be exact. Years ago, I was an independent consultant where I billed time and mileage. Instead of writing down mileage and time for every trip, I would just plug the addresses into Google Maps to get a rough estimate. In most cases, the estimates were low, but it wasn't really worth my time to worry about it. About a month into the contract, the CFO calls me about my timesheets, questioning some of the mileage/time entries. "Did it really take you 30 minutes to drive from A to B?" I told him I would normally just estimate the mileage because it's pretty close, but that wasn't good enough, he wanted it exact. Okay, fine. I started writing down mileage to the 10th and drive time to the minute. Suddenly those 20-minute trips in Google Maps become 25 to 30-minute trips due to traffic. Some of the 30 to 45-minute trips turn into 60-minute trips. Oops, had to take a detour, that's another 5 miles at 55 cents per mile. I started driving the speed limit too instead of 5 to 10 over. If he had ever questioned me, I had a dash cam to prove where I was and when I was there, but it never came up. Now the company is paying out more mileage and losing 2 to 3 hours of productivity every week because they paid me for 40 hours and only 40 hours, so if I'm spending that time driving, then I'm not working. All work must be covered by a permit. This was about 10 years ago. I was working on a project to migrate the contents of a data center to another data center about 50 miles away. Once empty, the data center would be decommissioned and sold off. This data center contained 3 separate halls and 2 comms rooms. Each hall was huge and filled with hundreds of server racks, tables, etc. Big enough that the walls had alphanumeric markers, so you could use a grid reference to find the rack you were interested in, e.g. rack 237 was at a 34. This data center was very old. There were long forgotten about servers and cables that disappeared under walls into other halls. The first task was to audit everything. What each rack contained, what network ports were used, what was it connected to, was it still required, etc. It was a mammoth task that would take months. This meant going there every day and most weekends for very long periods at a time. Access to the data center is tightly controlled. In order to be allowed in, you need to complete a permit to work, PTW. This would say you were person A, going to work in Hall 1 on this date, and needed access to server ABC in rack 123. Once allowed in, you would be given the key to that server rack and only the rack mentioned in the PTW. PTWs are okay for one-off jobs, but when you need to audit everything, it becomes a huge pain. After a week of submitting these PTWs and being explicit about which racks I would audit that day, I started to get annoyed. I asked the data center staff if I could submit one PTW, which would give me access to everything for the 9 months I would be working there. They flatly refused. All work must be covered by its own PTW. I suspected that they were annoyed at the data center being shut down and wanted to be deliberately difficult. So I did just that. I had a full list of all devices in the data center, so I wrote a macro to fill in the 3-page Word document requesting access to each rack individually for each day of the next 2 weeks. The macro then emailed each Word document to the PTW mailbox. The macro didn't complete. It stopped once emails to the mailbox started getting mailbox is full messages. I then got a call from the data center manager who asked what was going on as she was getting mailbox alerts and no PTWs could be processed. I explained everything and said I was told to submit multiple PTWs. She suggested I submit one generic request to cover the next 9 months, and she would talk to the data center staff. My generic PTW was approved and afterwards the staff just left me to get on with it. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.